Hey everybody, welcome back to Jay Smith Down the Football Podcast. I'm your host, JK. Today, before we get started, please make sure you guys are subscribing, like, and comment. Check us out here on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Check us out. Today, we are going to be discussing Browns, of course, trading quarterback Baker Mayfield to the Carolina Panthers, along with my sleeper teams for the 2022 season. And also, will the Rams repeat? So a lot to discuss here in the podcast today. But again, I hope you guys had a great 4th of July holiday. Stay safe out there. Continue to have fun. Stay safe as we move along here. But so today, the NFL world broke into shock. Well, not shock, but we were a little surprised when the Panthers traded for Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield. They sent over a 2024 conditional fourth round draft pick to the Browns for Baker, and he goes to Carolina, and the Browns of course get that pick, but we still don't know what's going on with Deshaun Watson. Is he going to play? Is he going to be suspended the whole year? We don't know what the deal with Deshaun Watson is with those lawsuits and everything like that. So we're just waiting to hear back from the NFL, and as far as with the civil cases, what they're going to do with Deshaun, and everything like that. To me, both of these teams lost this trade, I believe. Because with the Browns, you let Baker Mayfield get so disgruntled to the point where he wanted out, right? You guys went all in on getting Watson. You were so focused on Deshaun Watson coming over there that you had a quarterback with Baker Mayfield, even though he may not be Deshaun Watson. But again, with Deshaun Watson's situation, you don't know. You weren't sure whether he's going to play this year. We don't know. We still don't know. We're almost about to get into training camp pretty soon, in a couple of weeks. Not too far away from the season, and a decision on Watson's future has still not been made as far as whether he'll play for the Browns this year or not. Right? It's because of his lawsuits that are placed against him for the massage incidents. Right? So we don't know what's going on with that. And so with the Browns, trading Baker Mayfield away, that shows me that they're confident that Deshaun can maybe play at some point this upcoming season, or they're just confident in Jacoby Brissett, who's going to be their starting quarterback. I already named Brissett will be the starting quarterback this year, because due to Deshaun Watson's situation. So that is the case with that. But I believe that the Panthers, on the other hand, you get a quarter. You had Sam Darnold. See, the thing is with the Panthers, you traded for Sam Darnold last offseason because of course, the whole your quarterback situation was a whole mess. Cam went to the Patriots, right? And then you cut Cam Newton, and then you trade for Sam Darnold from the Jets, and that didn't really work out so well this year for you. And now you trade for Baker Mayfield an offseason later. So that's telling me what the Panthers are still kind of trying to figure out their quarterback situation. Who they're going to start at quarterback? Put Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield there. Obviously, you will probably want to go with Baker Mayfield. I just believe he is the better quarterback between the two, but it's not that. The discrepancy isn't that far in between with those quarterbacks. Sam Darnold did not have a great season for the Panthers last year. And even though Baker was, didn't have his best season with the Cleveland Browns last season, of course he did decently enough in the time he did play, and he also did great. He had a good season a couple years before, so Baker is still a solid quarterback, but it still was not the best move for either team. Even though the Browns do get that conditional 4th round draft pick back, so I guess that could come in handy. It's always good to get a draft pick back in the trade because those always come in handy. But to me, both of these teams kind of lost this trade, so we'll see who rolls out with their quarterbacks next year. As far as, is it going to be Baker, or is it going to be Sam Darnold, or is it going to be PJ Walker, or whoever for Carolina, or for the Browns case, what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson? So are they going to roll with Jacoby Brissett or bring in another quarterback, right? The Browns really baffled me with this move here. Even though we all know Baker was going to get traded, but they ruined the situation further than it already was ruined by, just putting all their chips in on Watson, giving him that $230 million guaranteed, and then just putting all their chips in on him to come here to Cleveland, barring what was going to happen with his legal situation. They're thinking he could probably get lucky and play some games this year. That's what they're banking on. So they're disregarding Baker Mayfield all entirely, which is what led to that more frustration building up within the organization, forcing Baker just to be like, I'm done with you guys. I'm done with the Browns, right? He said that not so long ago. He said, I'm done with Cleveland. So we all knew the trade was going to happen. We all thought, probably he's going to go to Seattle. I thought he was going to go to the Seahawks. I thought that would have been a more realistic team for him to be traded to, because their quarterback situation is kind of up in the air right now as well. So it seems like they're rolling with Drew Lock this year, or it could be Geno. We don't know yet. It seems like Drew Lock is going to be the starter with the more, since he's been a starter recently in this league, of course, for the Broncos, and Geno's kind of been that backup guy, just bouncing around from team to team, just being, that locker room veteran presence in the locker room. When Geno had to play last year, he did do pretty good when Russell Wilson got injured. So, that should be an interesting battle coming into training camp with those two guys in Seattle. But back to the Panthers and the Browns, I do believe that this trade was not. It was a little unethical for both teams, so we'll see how it affects both of them heading into the 2022 season and in their respective conferences and divisions. The AFC North is always a tough division with Cincinnati and. I don't know if the Steelers are going to be kind of, up in the air about them right now this year. But, of course, the Bengals, you still got the Ravens who are on the up and come up right now. You're trying to bolster that receiving group up, So, yeah, as far as the Panthers and NFC South, as we all know, is going to be ran by the Bucks. Or the Saints might surprise, I'll get into that in a second. But overall, I do believe, this was a very interesting trade, so just to keep an eye on that for the going into training camp and into the season. So, but my next topic here I want to discuss, guys, is who are my sleeper teams heading into the 2022 NFL season. My sleeper teams this year, the NFL teams I believe are going to shock people and make it far into the postseason. I believe are going to be the Bengals, the Saints, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Raiders, and the Colts. The Cincinnati Bengals were just in the Super Bowl last year, right? They lost to the Rams. It's a close game, but of course the O-line was horrendous. They couldn't block a single soul. And so that's why even the Bengals made improvements to their offensive line in the offseason. Of course, adding La'el Collins in free agency. He came over from the Cowboys. They signed him over to put in that right tackle, so that's a solid addition to the right tackle group for the Bengals. And of course, they drafted some offensive linemen as well. So they obviously made offensive line a need in this offseason. Like, this is what we need, as they should, right? Because that was one of their weakest points last season. It wasn't the receiver group, it wasn't the running backs, it wasn't the defense necessarily. In some spots the defense could have been better, but it was mainly the offensive line. Joe Burrow barely had a second or two to throw the ball. So when you add in offensive lineman, that helps out your quarterback, especially if he's young and he's having to get the ball out every single second. Just not being able to scan the field, make his reads. If he's having to continuously pop the ball out quickly because he doesn't have time in the pocket, that's a problem. That leads to turnovers. That leads to the issues on the field. So it's good that they're trying to bolster up the offensive line group. I believe the Bengals can make out. I won't say Super Bowl. I doubt they make the Super Bowl this year, even though they could. But it doesn't seem that likely. Just barring how good the AFC has gotten, how better they have gotten as a whole conference, especially with the Raiders and the Chargers boosting up their group. We'll get to that in a second. But overall, I believe the Bengals can make it back, maybe about to the divisional, if not the conference championship game next year. I think they can bounce back. I really do. I believe it's a great squad. Obviously, they got a franchise quarterback in Joe Burrow. The receiver group is amazing with T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, of course, and Tyler Boyd. So they're obviously a great team, and they're going to make it far. There's no doubt about it. My next team up again, and I hate to say this, but it's the New Orleans Saints. The Saints they're going to have Jameis Winston back this year. And before he got hurt, Jameis Winston actually was having a good season. He posted up double-digit touchdowns against, I think, a very low single number interception. So he had a great touchdown interception ratio before he got hurt. He was, playing good ball for the Saints, and they were winning. Well, they were winning. They were playing competitive good football, but he went down and it kind of just derailed the whole Saints offense from there. So now and then, of course, Sean Payton retired. Now you get Dennis Allen, who is a defensive-minded guy. He's now the head coach. So that will be interesting to see how, which I believe this can work to the Saints' favor as well. Because defense wins championship. Defense is huge, right? We saw the Rams with their defense, in the Super Bowl. They came up huge, right? In that last drive against Cincinnati. I mean, just constantly getting after, regardless of how bad the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line was, the fact that the Rams were able to just get back there and harass Burrow, just play after play, just getting back there, just collapsing the pocket down on him. That affects a quarterback throughout the game. Even if you're not getting sacked, just the constant pressure, it messes with the quarterback. It messes with their cadence, their maintenance of the ball, with their mind. It just really derails kind of the offense in a way. So defense is huge, and I believe that the Saints defense has always been good, and they're going to be good this year as well, especially with Dennis Allen, who was the defensive coordinator before taking the head coaching position. So now he's going to have full control over everything defensive wise, and implement the schemes on defense he wants to. He's definitely going to change some things up, as he should. So just be on the lookout for that, especially with Cam Jordan coming back, Demario Davis, just this stud group of defensive players. Again, your secondary also, Marshawn Lattimore, one of the top corners in the league. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson out there at safety, great player, great intelligence. He's got that high motor. He's going to get after you as well. So the Saints have an all-around good defense as well. And the offense will just come together. It will come together. With Jameis Winston coming back and them trying to add to that receiver group. They drafted Chris Olave from Ohio State in the first round of the draft in April. So obviously they were trying to bolster that receiver position up, and they did that with adding Chris Olave. The situation with Michael Thomas, we're not sure of. We don't know. Is he going to come back? Is he going to play? If he is, that's going to be a huge help to their receiver room this season. If not, then of course it will be a big, it'll be a big stinker to the receiver room because they'll be losing an all-pro wide receiver in Michael Thomas, right? So the dude can catch almost everything. He led the NFL in receptions not too long ago. So it'll be interesting to watch out for the Saints. Now moving on, staying within the NFC, I believe the Philadelphia Eagles can also be a sleeper team heading into this season. And this is why. The Eagles made it a priority to get Jalen Hurts some weapons. They made that a priority. They traded for A.J. Brown from the Titans, which I still don't understand why the Titans did that. But things happen in the NFL. So, that's just weird things happen, right? I mean, why did the Browns trade Baker Mayfield? Why did the Panthers trade for Baker Mayfield? I don't know. But anyway, so they traded for A.J. Brown, got him over to Philly, and of course, you still got Miles Sanders back there in the backfield. He's continuing to get better, with that offensive line. When they get the right guys under center, on the offensive line, to help pave the way for that running game, set that play action up, because Nick Sirianni loves that play action game a lot, rolling out Jalen Hurts on those bootlegs, trying to get him out in open space, whether he wants to pass it or run it. That's a weapon within itself with Jalen Hurts. So we'll expect to see more of that from Philly this year offensively. Defensively, they've been sound. They were a little lackluster last season, but I expect that to improve. Of course, they drafted linebacker out of Georgia. I can't remember his name, but they drafted him. I believe it's Nakobe Dean, if I'm correct, out of Georgia, who is a great player. Of course, a national champion with the team as they beat Alabama in the national championship last year. So he's heading to the NFL champ and got that. That pedigree, that hard work mentality, so that's good to bring that into the locker room. You got a young guy like that, bringing that within the Philly locker room, as well as Darius Slay coming back in that, in the secondary room. So I do look for the Eagles to at least make it to the wild card, if not the divisional round next year. I believe they're going to have a good season. I think they're going to win more than 9 games next year. I think it's possible if everybody stays healthy, if Jalen Hurts stays healthy, if A.J. Brown stays healthy, if Miles Sanders stays healthy, the Eagles, I believe, can be a threat in the NFC next season. Now, my next team on my sleepers list is the Las Vegas Raiders. We all know that they traded for Devontae Adams from the Green Bay Packers. Of course, Adams was wanting to get out of there and go somewhere else. So they traded him to Las Vegas. Now he goes to play with Derek Carr, who he played with in college. And now, those two get to establish a connection on the field, along with adding to the receiver room that includes Hunter Renfrow, who is an up-and-coming guy who is solid in the slot, running deep routes, over the middle of the field, those intermediate routes, Hunter Renfrow, and he can catch the ball. So it's really interesting what the Raiders are trying to do with their offense right now, and with Josh Jacobs, of course, being a great running back that he is, continuing to get better. If he can stay healthy, the offense has potential to be good this year. Derek Carr has potential to still remain within the top 10 quarterback, top 15 quarterbacks. He could jump up to top 10. This depending on how things roll around for the Raiders this year. Defensively, they still got solid defense. Even though they traded Yannick Ngakoue to the Colts, but it obviously they still got a solid defense there, and so I expect them to make some noise in the playoffs, just because they're a good team. They got a great mind as a head coach with Josh McDaniels, who of course former offensive coordinator in New England. He's got that already offensive mind, as well as being around the defensive talent there in New England all those years. So it'll be interesting to see how he incorporates different schemes there within the Raiders system. So that'll be something to watch out for. I do have the Raiders making the playoffs this year to the wild card. Last but not least on the list, got the Indianapolis Colts. They traded for Matt Ryan this offseason, to bolster up that quarterback room. They traded. They traded Carson Wentz to the Washington football team. Of course, after a very abysmal season last year, with the Colts just not having a good year. Carson did not have a good year last year. Turned the ball over a lot. Just not great quarterback play from him. And even though they lost to the Jags in the last game of the year, that would have propelled them to the playoffs. If they'd have won that game, they'd have been in the playoffs. But of course, they lost, right? So it's little stuff like that the Colts are still one of those teams that are trying to get over that hump. They have a great defense. They got a great solid mix of young guys and vet guys. They're just trying to piece it all together so they can get into the postseason. I do believe the Colts can make it into the postseason if the offensive line continues to stay healthy. Jonathan Taylor stays healthy. Of course, with the receiver room, continuing to get those guys improved, right? Michael Pittman Jr., great addition. Last year in the draft. Year before in the draft to the Indianapolis Colts, giving Matt Ryan his bona fide pass catcher out there on the outside, and just continue to add to that receiver room. And they brought back Reggie Wayne to be the wide receivers coach, which is something interesting. They brought him back this offseason, so he's coaching the wide receivers, so that'll be interesting. You got one of the greatest Indianapolis coaches coaching your players, so that's awesome. But I do have the Colts making it to the playoffs. I don't know how far. Just again depends on the health of the players. I know we all know Jonathan Taylor's gonna have a good year. So that's the only thing to keep my eye on with Matt Ryan. We'll see what happens with that. But let's say we'll know that he can be up for more than 2 seconds in the pocket with this offensive line, because they are a great offensive line. So that's something to keep. As well as the defense is great too. Darius Leonard, all those guys on the defense side of the ball. Of course, they traded for Yannick Ngakoue, right? So they got him over there. And the cornerback room is still good with Kenny Moore and all those guys on the outside. So I do believe the Colts have an overall great team that's going to make noise next year. And that leads me to my next thing as far as with the Super Bowl. I think the Rams can repeat. It's going to be hard, but they have a chance to repeat. The only threat to them in the NFC right now would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady coming back, but Gronk retired. Well, for now, we don't know. How him and Brady like to do. They say they retire for like 2 weeks, and then we're coming back to play football. They get tired of being with the wife and kids at home, I guess. Yeah, Tom, I'm talking to you. But yeah, I do believe that the Rams can make a run back for the Super Bowl. They got Aaron Donald back. Just mostly all the core guys from last year's team are going to be back there, and the wide receiver room is going to continue to improve. Again, Van Jefferson, he's great. We don't know if Odell's going to sign back with him or not, but Cooper Kupp, obviously out of this world talent. So it's just a matter of can they just recreate that magic that they had? The defense can remain with the tenacity and the grit to get after you all game. So pushing them, propelling them all towards the season, into the postseason, all the way to the Super Bowl. So it's just a matter of can they retain all of that, and can they make a run for it again? Now I believe they can, but again, now the AFC is loaded too with the Chargers, the Raiders, the Chiefs. Right, every year they're in the mix every year. Even possibly the Ravens, but I won't go too deep into that. We'll have to see as the offseason plays out going into the season. But and the Bengals, shoot, could we get a rematch? Bengals Rams, probably not, but never know, it could happen. So those are my things I just want to talk about today on the podcast, guys. Looking over and want to discuss the Baker Mayfield trade and everything like that. So we continue to move throughout the offseason here, going into training camp the next couple of weeks. So we'll get a feel of how all these teams are looking heading going into the 2022 season right now. It's going to be a great season. Can't wait for it. It's been too long without NFL football, so I'm psyched for it. I'm going to keep you guys posted on everything you need to know as far as the NFL is concerned. Thank you for tuning in. Again, catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. So make sure you subscribe. Post down in the comment section. Make sure you like, share. Let us know your thoughts. And thank you for tuning in.